Hello ladies and gents, welcome back to the channel. The final Sad Times episodic review of The Last of Us HBO series has landed. Episode 9 is here. This is the season 1 finale review. Goes without saying guys, but this is going to contain spoilers, so come back and watch this at a later time if you haven't yet checked out either the full series or the episode itself. And without further ado, please do leave a thumbs up. Feel free to come and subscribe as well if you're brand new to the channel, you enjoy this type of content. And don't forget to hit the bell icon on the channel homepage and you'll be notified as and when any content like this goes live. So episode 9 is called Look for the Light. It's that episode. So for those of you that have played the game, you know what's coming. And just like it's done with the other episodes in the series, even though you know certain events are coming, it's been delivered absolutely masterfully. To the point where there's people that were watching this with me and they were like, this is really intense. And I said, yeah, now you can see why I'm such a huge fan of video games, especially of games of this nature that tell an amazing story, that really get you invested in what's going on and just get you emotionally pulled from pillar to post. I absolutely love it. This episode did not disappoint in my opinion. I thought it was fantastic, absolutely flawless. Felt a little bit rushed in some scenes. I felt a little bit rushed. I think as a whole we could have done with maybe an episode or two. We could have pushed it to 11 or 12 episodes, and I think we could have fleshed out some of the other scenes. But I'll touch on the series as a whole at the end of the video, but this is more to do with the episode specifically. So we start off seeing a pregnant lady. Straight away I knew this was Ellie's mum. It was really amazingly casted. The woman looks absolutely on par with Bella Ramsey. I don't know if she was related to her at all or whether it was just a random cast, but she looked really, really cool. Really sort of had the same sort of mannerisms, looked a lot like Ellie, and you know, just the hair, the facial sort of shape and everything else. It was a really good casting choice. So I thought that was brilliant. We could tell straight away she was going to end her life, so she's given birth. Current pandemic issues going on, there's walkers and all that kind of stuff everywhere, so the virus is in full swing at this point, and she takes out the flip knife that we see Ellie end up with, and she's about to end her life. She's about to stab the baby in the stomach, and it's a very heartfelt scene. She's sort of pinned up against the wall. She's mid-labor. One of these walkers are trying to bosh down the door. She sticks a sort of chair, props it up against the door. You can hear it running up the stairs. It's a really tense scene, and I thought, oh my god, what are we going to see? But she manages to fight the walker off. The walker jumps on her. Unfortunately, she gets bit in the leg, but she gives the walker a good seeing to with the flip knife, stabs the walker and kills it. But she then realizes that she's been bitten on the inside of her leg just as she's given birth to Ellie. So Ellie comes out, baby screaming, cord still attached. And very cleverly what she does is she wraps the cord up, cuts it straight away, severs the cord, so the virus doesn't pass into the bloodstream of Ellie. It doesn't have enough time to get through the umbilical cord into the baby. And I was like, that is how it happens. So we get a real on-hand, real brutal scene on how Ellie is essentially immune to the virus and how she manages to live with the cordyceps, which is also confirmed towards the end of the episode with the conversation between Joel and Marlene. But in this scene, we see her mum really struggling. She's coming to terms with the fact that she's going to die. She's holding Ellie in her arms. It's really, really emotional. And she's kind of looking at her, knowing that she's going to die soon. Next thing, we see Marlene walk in, and she takes Ellie off of her. And Ellie's mum kind of says, you know, look after her, do everything you can. And she puts the flip knife on Ellie's chest and says, protect her with everything that you have, always. And Marlene's like, yeah, of course we will. So she takes the baby out of the room. Ellie's mum is absolutely screaming to Marlene to be finished. She wants to die. She doesn't want to turn into what she knows she's going to turn into. She says, no, I can't do it. And she's like, please, she's begging her. So she hands the baby over to one of the other Fireflies in the hallway. And she says, cover her ears. I don't want her to hear this. She goes in and shoots Ellie's mum in the skull. She is done. So ending her, obviously, what's going to be an absolute tragic turn of events. She's just given birth to Ellie, and she wants the last memory to be of her holding Ellie. She doesn't want to turn into one of those things, the living dead. So Marlene grants her wish. She goes in and puts her out of her misery, which is bittersweet. But we get that scene. We then cut to the modern day Ellie. So it goes forward, and she's kind of sat on the edge of like a pickup truck, and she's just debating life. She's thinking back to the good old days before the virus hit, but she's kind of always lived through the virus, but she's just seen the turmoil of it and what it's done to people. how it's evolved, how it's just changed people's lives as time's gone on. And she sees Joel, and then they start walking along, and Joel starts talking about showing her how to play the guitar. And she's like, yeah, I'd like to learn that. That's cool. So they're going back and forth, sharing like the usual conversation. But it's so nice to see how this relationship has blossomed. It would have been nice, as I said, to get a few more episodes of this just to really cement home how much these two have been through, both in their personal lives before they met each other, but also now that they are together, and how much they're sharing on a personal level in terms of their emotion, their fear, their worries, their wants, their wishes from life, their dreams. Even in this pandemic, this virus that's running rampant, they still have dreams and ambition, and they're only going to be sharing it with each other, which is heartfelt. So they get those sorts of conversations going. Ellie says that we're going to finish your plans, Joel. We're going to do what you want to do. You want to go to space. You want to do that. I want to do that too. I'm going to be there with you. And basically confirms to him that she's there to stay. Joel gives a little bit of a smirk, and he's really happy. And he's like, yeah, you know, this is me now. And he starts to feel that not Sarah's been replaced, but the hole that Sarah left when she died and when she was killed is now starting to be filled again. He's starting to feel like the old Joel. He's starting to crack jokes. He's starting to be a little bit more laid back. He's starting to be a lot more open and be the cool dad figure again. So it's really nice to see that relationship bloom from the first episode where they were at each other's throats. They hated each other, very standoffish, whereas now it's Joel and Ellie. It's that relationship, and the actors have done such an amazing job throughout this series of delivering that to us through each episode. But just the way that they've acted it out, the mannerisms, the facial expressions, the dialogue, the delivery of the dialogue, the set pieces, just everything about how it's been portrayed in those characters has been amazing. And to do all that from episode 1 to 9 and try and fill almost 12 hours worth of game into 9 episodes is absolutely amazing. So full credit to the actors, Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey. They've been amazing, and I think the casting has been absolutely phenomenal for most of the characters through this series. The only one I didn't really agree with was that lady in the beginning. I can't remember what her name is now, but the one that didn't really have much emotion, and she was like after Henry and Sam. I can't remember what her name is now, Kathy, I think, something like that, but it's gone over my head. That's the one character that's pretty forgetful. But Riley, even Ellie's mum, that brief scene, all the Fireflies, Sam, even like, you know, some of the idiots and nutters that we saw in the last episode, the cult-like people that were eating people, David, even Bill and Frank, they were all absolutely amazingly casted, and I think it's credit to the casting staff that's put all this together. Really, they've all done an amazing job and done the game justice, which is great. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of that back and forth with Joel and Ellie. We then get that amazing scene in the game where they end up in like an observatory, and Ellie notices that there's animals outside. She hears stuff. She runs outside. Joel's like, Ellie, wait, don't run off. She runs off, knocks the ladder over, and he's more conscious about the noise that the ladder's just made versus her excitement about finding some real life livestock and giraffes outside. So Joel follows Ellie, they catch up, and then they see that there's a giraffe that's sort of just in the opening of the outside, and it's eating some leaves, and they're kind of like, oh my god, it's just bringing them back to humanity a little bit, seeing the giraffe there eating and just being innocent and just enjoying its life. And it just kind of makes them appreciate, actually, they are still alive, they've got each other, whilst everything's absolute bullshit, and you know, they're in a really bad situation at the minute, and it's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. They're seeing this animal, and it's kind of giving them hope almost. It's a little sign of relief, and it's portrayed really well in the game, but it's done amazingly well here. I just would have liked a little bit more conversation, a little bit more dialogue in this scene as we do get in the game. But I think the actors did it justice again. The time that they were given, they've done more than enough with it. So we still got that feeling of sort of unity and them coming together and almost being like a father and daughter relationship now as well. The bond that cannot be broken. So they see the giraffes, and apparently, a little fun fact, this was a real giraffe. So the giraffe that Ellie feeds in the episode is a real giraffe. It was put behind a blue screen. And they're trained, obviously, and the scene where you sort of, it pans out and you see other giraffes in the herd, I think. Are they called a herd? A school? I don't know. I think it's a herd. And they're sort of panned out in the area behind them in the university bit. Those were a combination of virtual FX, but also some footage was used from apparently a zoo somewhere that they cropped into the scene and used parts of that as well. So it's a mix of real giraffes, virtual reality, and some actual footage of giraffes at a zoo. Well, I thought that was pretty cool because you cannot make it out. It looks legit. They all look real. But the one that Ellie feeds is an actual real giraffe, which I thought was really cool. I had a bit of a debate with my partner. She's like, is that a real giraffe? It looks like CGI. I was like, nah, it's a real giraffe. I looked it up. So really cool. We get that moment. And as Ellie's sort of feeding the giraffe, she's sort of giggling. And Joel kind of looks over and is like, oh, this is great. Gets that whole proud dad moment where you take your kids to the zoo and they have the great time. And, you know, you just feel like you've ticked the box of looking after your kids and you've fulfilled the happiness slot, basically. And Joel gets that moment. He gets a little side glance at Ellie, gives her a nice smile, and he just feels like the old Joel again. This is where we really do feel like Joel's come into his own. And in true Last of Us style, it doesn't last very long, but in this moment, he's feeling great. So they have a little heart-to-heart moment on the roof. Ellie's kind of thanking Joel for everything that he's done. She says, you know, you've been there for me and you've looked after me even though I've been a pain in the ass. They share a heart-to-heart. They talk a little bit about their past troubles, their past worries. But they're both here because of each other and they both appreciate each other. So there's a little bit of moment of appreciation, loads of love, loads of emotion through the scenes. Great dialogue, great acting. We then cut to a scene where they're walking through the Fedra camps. And Joel's kind of explaining what these are. And Ellie's like, what is all this? And he said, you know, this is a medical tent. This is where people would come if things went wrong, people were injured. And Ellie's kind of like, oh, was that for Sarah? And Joel's like, no, Sarah was gone at this point. It was actually for me. He starts talking about a guy that tried to kill himself, couldn't live with himself, ended up in a tent, starts talking about it. And Joel kind of stops, pauses, and says, that guy was me. So the old Joel, 4 or 5 seasons ago, would not admit that. He would not come out of his shell that much and admit to Ellie that he had a moment of weakness. They didn't have that bond or that relationship at the time. Whereas now, he's quite open. He talks about his wounds, he talks about his weaknesses, and he says, you know, I was that guy. I nearly killed myself. I tried. I flinched on the trigger. Can't explain why, but I missed and I ended up in here. I had some emotions going on because of Sarah. I didn't want to live anymore, which is understandable. And then Ellie kind of looks at him and says, well, you know, that's really sad, but, you know, I'm glad you're here. Time does heal old wounds. And basically saying, you know, you're not that guy anymore. And Joel kind of looks at her and says, it's not time that's healed it. And just sort of looks at her and gives her a glance as if to say, you've pulled me through those bad times. It's you that's healed me, not time. Which is a really touching scene because Ellie kind of gets choked up. You can hear the sort of tension in her voice where she's really overwhelmed and so happy to hear that from someone that she equally cares about just as much. And she kind of says, you know, likewise, I'm glad that the attempted suicide didn't work out because, you know, you're here because I'm here and I'm here because of you. And it's just a touching scene. Just as they're about to share some more emotion and they start talking, Ellie cracks out the book and he says, Joel says, I'm in the mood for some more jokes. And he's like, yeah, cool. And they kind of move away from the soppiness and they're like, oh yeah, you know, let's move on. And she gets the joke book out, spreads a couple of good jokes about grapes, and I can't recall exactly what the jokes were, but there's a couple of good jokes in there. Joel's like, oh, that one's terrible, don't rate it. And he's like, come on, it's the best. And they have a little joke and a laugh. And as they're walking, the camera really cleverly, great shot, pans away and you see a frontal shot of them walking towards the camera. And in the background, you can just make out there's some fireflies walking towards them. And a guy just casually lobs like a stun grenade or a smoke grenade. Knocks them both over. Joel clocks the grenade just as it lands, pulls Ellie forward, but the flash and the disorientation of it all knocks them both out, basically. Ellie kind of goes all hazy, lands on the floor. Just as Joel's about to turn around and realise what's going on, he gets smashed over the head with a butt of a gun. And I know what that feels like. If you've played COD or any multiplayer games like Battlefield or COD, when you get flashbanged, it's annoying as fuck. By the time you realise what the hell's going on, you're already dead or smashed to pieces with the gun. So I know what Joel's feeling right now. But anyway, he gets boshed with the gun and he gets knocked out. We then move forward into another scene, and this is the heartfelt scene that we've all been waiting for those of us that have completed the game. This is where we find out the truth about Ellie's procedure and how they're going to extract the anti-vaccine, basically, to cure the virus. So Joel comes to, he's all hazy, he's waking up, he's in some sort of hospital, and Marlene's there. He stood there waiting for him, and she says, you know, you've gone through a lot, don't move. You took a bit of a knock to the head. Straight away, Joel being Joel, where's Ellie? What's going on? And Marlene kind of says she's being prepped for surgery. And Joel says, what do you mean surgery? She's, you know, we're coming here for a vaccine. You said you can do it through the blood. And after examination, a doctor has basically confirmed to Marlene that actually it's not looking great for Ellie. They The cordyceps that are within Ellie's body have kind of grown with her as she's got older. They've molded and become a part of her, which is why she didn't die. She said they're just part of her own cordyceps. Her cordyceps have convinced the invading cordyceps that actually they're part of her. And because they've been there pretty much since birth, and the whole virus didn't get into her bloodstream because her mum was clever enough to sever the umbilical cord, that it's just part of Ellie, and it's grown into her brainstem and everything. But Joel kind of says, right, well, what are you saying? And Marnie's like, you know what I'm saying. So the only way that we can extract those cordyceps and create a virus or an anti-vaccine for the virus is to extract the brainstem. So Joel puts 2 and 2 together and realizes that actually, in order for an anti-vaccine to be made and this whole mess to be reversed, Ellie has to die. She has to go through surgery. The doctor has to extract her brainstem, which will, of course, kill her. So Joel, understandably, is visibly distraught. His world's been turned absolutely upside down. He's trekked halfway across the country to get Ellie into this hospital, all to be told that she's going to be killed. And even if it means for the better good, and this is what's going on in the background, Marlene, you get a frontal shot of Joel. He's really tearful. He just goes absolutely glazed over. His blood rushes from his face. He feels soulless, and he's just, trying to process what the hell's she's saying to him. And Marlene, in the background, you can hear it like disorientated voice. She's saying it's for the greater good. We need to do this. It's the right thing to do. The only way we can reverse this mess and go back to normal is to extract the cordyceps from Ellie's brain, and they can regrow it into a dish and basically form the basis of the cells that they need to make a vaccine and to end this mess once and for all. Ellie is the cure. They're very confident in that, but it does mean that she has to die in the process. Joel, understandably, is not having any of it. He's like, no, it's not happening. And she said, it's not your choice, Joel. It's, she would want this, that, and the other. Joel is visibly still trying to process what's happening. Marlene then says to him, you need to let it go. I can't, can't owe you enough. I never thought I would say this, but I owe you my life, and you've done such a service to us. And Joel's like, no, I didn't do it for that. I did it because I thought Ellie wasn't going to get harmed. And Marlene's kind of saying, well, think about what I feel. I promised Ellie's mum that I would look after her. I promised it. That was the last words I gave her. And now I have to wheel her into theatre knowing that she's going to be killed in this surgery. But I know it's for the greater good. I know her mum would want it. All that kind of stuff. But Joel's not having it. He's built up such a relationship with Ellie. And he's going to feel like he's lost a daughter again. And he's not willing to go through it. So he's not having it. But Marlene kind of says, get him out of here. She orders the Fireflies to take him away. She gives Joel Ellie's flip knife, which is obviously originally Ellie's mum. In the beginning of the episode had it. And it was given to Ellie as part of the handover to Marlene. Joel's now got it. And she says to the Fireflies, take him out to the highway, give him his backpack, give him his stuff, give him this, make sure he's all right. But then if he tries anything, just kill him. So Joel reluctantly staggers his way through the hospital. He makes a clever little beeline for the board, and he sees the directory, and he sees where the floors are, where the pediatric surgery is. So in his brain, he's already processing what level he needs to get to. And as he stops, the guy behind him says, did we say stop? What's going on? And he's like, oh, which way? And he said, down the stairwell. So as he's going down the stairwell, we know what's coming. Joel goes Rambo, disarms the guy behind him, shoots him in the knee, then the head. And then the guy on the stairs, he shoots him as well. He takes him out. And then he says, where is she? And the guy's like, I ain't telling you shit. Go to hell, or something like that. And Joel's like, I ain't got time for this shit. And then shoots him in the face. So we get a real intense scene then of really eerie, sort of an eerie version of the menu music, or I call the menu music, the opening scene music, the introduction music, which is the music from the game, just slightly tweaked and slightly revamped with a different riff on the guitar and stuff like that. But it's the same music from the game, title music. And Joel goes Rambo, and you get that music playing in the background. It's very slow, very daunting. It feels atmospheric. He's just casually and coldly walking through the hospital, essentially murdering people just to get Ellie back. And this is the part of the series, but also the game, where I sat there and I really thought about it, and I thought, fuck, imagine being put in this position of knowing what you've done is the right thing overall. It's the right thing morally to do. It's going to save the world. It's going to save millions of people, billions in fact. It's going to save the planet probably. It's going to reverse all this damage. But in order for that to happen, you have to essentially sacrifice your nearest and dearest, which at this point for Joel is Ellie. Ellie's his absolute world. Like I said, she's not replaced Sarah, but she has become a daughter figure. And you could just see on his face, he's not willing to go through that loss again. He's just got through it because of Ellie. And he's not willing to lose her. And if that means he has to murder a hospital full of arguably innocent people and people that are there, doctors that are there to help create a vaccine from the brainstem and the cordyceps that they're going to extract from her brain, so be it. He's going on a murdering spree. And in a way, I said to my partner when I was watching this, I absolutely understand where he's coming from. Can you just imagine the emotional pull? I don't know if I could do it. Imagine if it was your child or someone very close to you that you love, and you had to hand them over knowing that they were the cure, but in the process they were going to be killed. I don't think I could do it either. On top of what Joel's already gone through as well, we start to create excuses for this behavior. We start to create excuses for people going on a murdering spree. And that's The Last of Us. That's what it does. It makes you really question your morality. It makes you question what's right and wrong. Would you do it? What's more important? Love, peace, the greater good, all that sort of thing. The moral compass comes into question so many times, and this is the pivotal moment that we were all waiting for, and it was delivered brilliantly. So we get the tension building. He's going through the hospital, which, fun fact number 2, they actually used an abandoned hospital for this scene and for this sort of area and section in the episode where it's all shot inside a real abandoned hospital, which I thought was super creepy. But you know, saves money on sets and things like that. He didn't have to set up props or anything. It was all there. Obviously, they brought in their own little stuff to add, and the tables and the lighting and things like that. But the actual place was an abandoned hospital, which was a real place that they used to film it in, which I thought was mental, but also amazing. So yeah, we get that build up of tension. Joel's going around casually and almost with laser precision, just picking people off, stabbing people, shooting people in the face with the rifle. And this is Joel in his prime. Don't fuck with him. If there's anything he can do to save the person that he loves, he's going to do it. But he goes on an absolute rampage, slow walking. And once he gets to the level, he gets the pediatric surgery. He knows that this is where Ellie is essentially going to be dead or alive. And there's this really slow motion walk that he does. He's walking towards the surgery. It's something I experienced very recently myself, in terms of when you've got someone you love being in that position and you think, when I'm walking up to this door now in this hospital, is this going to be the last time I'm going to see them? And you just feel that in Joel's delivery. The way that the music is, the way that the camera pans, just his facial expression. He's walking with purpose and hope, but he's also walking with fear. He's battling between, in his head, you can see he's thinking, am I going to get there in time? Am I going to save her? I have to save her. I'm walking with that purpose. But he's also walking towards what he thinks is his doom. Is he going to walk into that room and see Ellie, surgically butchered? Is it going to be too late? Is she going to be dead? And has he again let himself down, let Ellie down, etc., let Tess down? All the promises that he's made, has he ruined it again for himself? And is this just a never-ending cycle? All those emotions you can get from Pedro's performance. And this guy needs a bloody Oscar, and so does Bella. I think the acting that they've both delivered in the characters, even when there's been no dialogue and no script and no lines, has been phenomenal. If you can get that feeling from just looking at their expression and just a very simple camera shot, a slow panning camera, and you can feel exactly what they're feeling, and just their face brings up all the previous scenes, previous emotions, hats off. That is top tier acting, and I absolutely loved it. Very heart-wrenching. You could just feel absolutely the weight of what Joel was feeling in that scene. It felt like you were there with him. It felt like you were sharing his emotion, and this is what great TV should be. So luckily he gets there in time. He opens the door, and just as he's about to, what he thinks is going to see a scene of Ellie just led there, brain opened up, everything else, and the surgery's done, and he's too late. He gets there in time. They're just rigging her up. They've just given her some anesthetic. They're just about to put the trace machine on her. And he pulls out the pistol, points it at the thing and says, unhook her. And the guy turns around, the surgeon, grabs a scalpel. He's like, I'm not willing to let you get to her. And he just goes bang, shoots him in the head, points it at another surgeon and says, unhook her. And I'm like, oh shit. It's just crazy. It's a great scene. So they instantly unhook her. They patch her up. They step away. And he's like, cool. Picks Ellie up. And then you get that scene where he's walking out of the hospital with Ellie in arms, which is the scene you get here. The still of that. Picks her up, and you could just feel that he's absolutely reunited with her. He's so glad he's made it in time. He just has this cold, don't fuck with me, don't cross me, I've got a purpose, this girl's my purpose, and you're not messing it up anymore. He's determined. So he gets Ellie, carries her out of the hospital. As they get to the car park underneath, parking lot for people overseas, he comes across Marlene, and she says, how long do you think it's going to be before you can't keep her safe anymore? She's going to grow up. She's going to, venture off. You're going to die. She's going to get attacked by raiders potentially, or she's going to get eaten. Something's going to kill her. So why not kill her now is basically what Marlene says. Why not kill her now for the greater good? You still got time. Think about what she would want to do. And Joel says it's not for her to decide, or any of them. And Marlene's like, yeah, it's not for you to decide either. Think about what she would want. She would want to save the world. If you were to be honest with yourself and you were to ask her, going into this surgery, it means you won't come out, but it means you will produce a vaccine. She would want to do it. And it's the truth. And Joel knows it's the truth, but he still can't accept that loss. He cannot come to grips or to terms with the loss of Ellie after everything that he's been through, the journey that they've been on as well. They've trekked absolutely thousands of miles to get here, all for what? To hand her over on a plate for her to be killed. And that's how Joel sees it. He doesn't see it like he's handing over the girl that's going to create the vaccine that's going to save the world. He doesn't see it like that. He sees him as letting himself down, essentially killing Ellie by handing her over. And after everything he's been through with Sarah, with Tess, Bill and Frank, all the people that he's lost in this journey, he's not willing to just give up and hand her over, even if it means it's going to create something amazing and it's going to be for the greater good. And I thought, absolutely amazing. Loved it. So he gets out. As I said, just as they're walking through, Marlene's like, no, think about this. You've still got time. And you just see Joel absolutely battling what's right morally, what the greater thing is to do. But in his head, he's like, nah. And you can see that conflict in his eyes. You see a little flash go off, a gunshot. We then cut forward to modern day Joel driving in an SUV. It looks like he's on his own, and he's sort of like really gutted, and you can see that he's deep breathing. He's like closing his eyes. Shit, he's got that sigh. And you think, oh my God, he's left Ellie. But as it was done masterfully in the game, it makes it look like he's on his own, but he's not. And just as you hear a noise, he sort of looks over and Ellie's on the back seat. So he's got out with her, and he basically says a lie, tells a complete lie. She says what happened, and he's like, don't worry, you're just coming around from the anesthetic, you're still hazy. Turns out there's loads of people like you. They don't need you. They couldn't extract what they needed to extract from you. Tells an outright lie. And says that they're going to head home. So they're heading towards Tommy's little ranch in his little city that he's got set up, that little fortress. And Ellie's like, what? And he's like, yeah, don't worry about it. There's loads of people out there. Apparently what they wanted to do and what they were hoping to do from your blood, they couldn't do. The hospital got attacked. And she's like, oh my God, did people get hurt? And Joel's like, yeah, everyone got killed. There was raiders. It was messy. I only barely got you out of there. And she's like, is Marlene okay? And he's like, no. And secretly, he butchered all of them. So this man will go to any lengths to keep that small amount of peace that he's managed to find in Ellie, in his head and in his heart. He'll do absolutely anything to defend it, even if it means lying to Ellie and creating an absolute fabrication about what happened and hiding what he's done. So for those of you that have played the game, part 2, spoilers, you know what's happening. Ellie's going to eventually find out, but we're not going to go into that yet because we don't know how season 2 in the TV series is going to play out. But she does find out, shit hits the fan, and something epic also happens shortly after. I've heard they're not going to change much for season 2, which for me is a little bit of a worry, but I have heard we're going to get longer episodes. It's going to be fleshed out a bit more. I think the process here was, I don't think they thought that this series was going to do as well as it did, because why go with 9 episodes? But if they were literally lifting the material from the game, essentially in most cases, surely they would have thought we're going to need at least 12 episodes for this, if not 15, 18. But anyway, the thought process apparently was go with 9 episodes. If it flops, which they thought apparently it was going to flop, it wasn't going to do as well as it did, which is mental. But they have already got sign off from more episodes for season 2. Whether that's they're longer or they're going to get more in terms of monetary amount, but I think it's going to be a combination of the two. From what I've seen online, we're going to get longer episodes in most cases, and they're going to be longer in terms of the amount of episodes we're going to get in that season. So hopefully at least 12 or 15 for season 2. But my worry potentially is season 2 has a lot less content. It has a lot less going on, a lot less action, arguably, a lot less pivotal scenes, a lot less pivotal dialogue. And I didn't find part 2 as strong as part 1. It was a great game. I did enjoy it, but I'm on board with some of the gripes with it. And I don't know if that was a wise move. I think we could have done with season 2 having 9 episodes and season 1 having 12 to 15. But that's just my opinion. But we'll see where it goes. I'm not shitting on season 2 already. I'm just a little bit worried about it. But anyway, rounding off the episode, as I said, we see Joel explaining to Ellie that this happened, that happened, when it didn't. We know Joel went in and massacred everybody, saved Ellie. But he's told her that, you know, the hospital was attacked. He barely got away. Marlene's killed. Everyone died. Ellie isn't the answer to the cure anymore. They couldn't extract what they needed to, so don't worry. And apparently there's loads of other people out there that they can work with, so they don't need her. I.e., you're not going anywhere, so don't think about it anymore. We then get the scene where Joel and Ellie are hiking, and this is where Joel is almost like finding comfort in his choices in terms of what he's done to everybody in the hospital and what he's done in saving Ellie. He talks to her about Sarah and says, you know, you would have liked Sarah, she would have liked you. You're really funny. Sarah used to do that. Sarah used to do this. Let's walk through there. Oh, you know, this reminds me of Sarah. You're just like her. And you can see it's literally Joel slotting Ellie into that void that he lost and opened up when Sarah was killed. So, confirmed. We then get the final scenes where we're outside Tommy's city and Ellie kind of says, hang on a minute, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, oh shit, here we go. Did she actually hear everything? Did she hear everything that went on? I thought potentially they were going to change it a little bit and say that she was kind of half awake because she didn't get much of the anesthetic in her before Joel said unhook her and leave be. But we don't get that. But they might sprinkle that into season 2. Who knows? She says to him, I need to confess about my first kill. I know I said to you I haven't killed anyone, or it was that time was the first time. It wasn't. And she basically opens up to Joel about Riley, that whole situation we saw. I think it was episode 7 where they were in the shopping mall and we see that DLC content left behind where Riley and Ellie spend that time together. It's very heartfelt, very emotional, and Ellie essentially confirms that she had to kill Riley. She had to put her out of her misery, and she hates herself for it. And she starts blaming herself for some of the stuff that's happened off the back of it. And Joel basically says, you know what, sometimes you just need to do what you need to do. It's not on you. Sometimes stuff just happens. And then Ellie kind of clicks and looks at him and says, swear to me that everything that you've said that happened in that hospital and the reason why I'm no longer the cure, or the, you know, they can't extract what they need to, and there's other people, everything you've told me is true. And he's swear it, and he's like, yeah, I swear it. And I'm like, shit. And she's like, okay. And then it just ends. It just ends. She just says, okay. And then the credits roll. So I'm like, shit. So for me, ends on a bit of a cliffhanger. For someone that's played both games, I know what's coming and I cannot wait to see how it unfolds. I'm not sure how long we're going to have to wait, but it's probably going to be at least till next year. I'd love to get season 2 the end of this year, maybe towards Christmas or something. I would hope. Hopefully the filming's already started, but it's probably going to be next year, if not the year after, guys, that we're going to have to wait. But that's absolutely fine. If we're going to get this level of quality, this level of amazing storytelling, acting, cinematography, special effects, dialogue, action, I'm willing to wait 3 years if it means we're going to get the same sort of product. As I said earlier, my worry is we're not going to get the same sort of product. It's already been confirmed they're essentially going to lift part 2, the game, into season 2, the TV series. And as I said, there's a lot of problems that I had with the game part 2. There's some great stuff in there. There's some great content. So hopefully we'll get that fleshed out. But I think there's a missed opportunity in... We should have at least got 10 episodes. I would love to have seen 12 for season 1 because there's so many scenes that I would like to have seen fleshed out a bit more. Some of the interactions, even the small scenes like, you know, with the giraffe, that's a pivotal moment in the game. We get a very brief interaction in the series. It's literally 3 minutes, if that. Maybe 5, I don't know. I didn't time it, but it just seemed to move along very quickly. We didn't get that whole astronaut scene with, Ellie in the helmet and all that kind of stuff. Even with the dam earlier on in the series, there was a bit where they go through the dam. That's fleshed out a lot more in the game. Whilst it's not pivotal to the story, it would have been nice to get a little bit more time in each section, get a little bit more Joel and Ellie time, a little bit more interaction, a little bit more relationship building, jokes firing off, them bouncing off of each other, maybe some interaction with some of the walkers and some of the fight scenes. We only saw one bloater as well. I was hoping to get that scene in the underground bit of the hospital where you've got the absolute horde going nuts. And you get bloaters, clickers, all that kind of stuff. And there's just a mental fight scene in there as well. Hopefully, I was hoping to get that, but we didn't. So just a bit more of that, really. And I'm conscious, and I don't think there's anything wrong with the product we've got, but I think it's very difficult when you've played the game to not compare the two. I'm trying to isolate this review away from the game. I'm not trying to compare it because it's a different piece of media. And this is TV, not a video game. But when you're basing the TV on a video game, you can't help but compare the two. So it's not a gripe. It's just I wish we would have got more episodes to have more time with these things and fleshed out scenes, fleshed out areas, more battles, more content, more dialogue. I just want more. I just want more of it. I think it was a beautiful thing, and it's an absolute shame that we're sat here discussing the final episode of the series. I'm absolutely gutted we're not going to be talking about this next week, but it's a fantastic TV series. If I was to give the episode and the TV series a rating, it's a solid 10 out of 10. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Like I said, if I was to be really picky and start going into that, comparing it to the game mode, I'd love more fleshed out scenes, areas. As I've said a million times, there's stuff I would like to have seen more of, and I think they rushed a lot of it. But I think given with what they've been given, the actors, the director, the production team, to be told you've got 9 episodes to deliver a game, essentially a storyline of a game that's arguably 10, 15, 18 hours into 9 episodes, and not all of them were an hour long. Some of them were 40 minutes, some of them were half an hour, some of them were an hour, some of them were 50 minutes, and you've got to cram all of that into 9 episodes, which is a hell of a task. And I think with that in mind, and also separating it away from the game, looking at it on its own merit as a TV show, it's fantastic TV. It's a fantastic delivery of a story that's heart-wrenching, emotional, relatable in some ways to our own lives, to our own relationships with our children, our families and things like that. The moral compass is brought into there so many times. It's all about struggle, about pain, about suffering, about hope, and about just getting through those moments and not actually dwelling on it, but then realizing that actually trauma is going to hit your doorstep again, and then how you cope with that. And you know, Joel's such a great character, Ellie's a great character, the casting was excellent. I just can't fault it, guys. The effects was amazing. It was a shame we didn't get more scenes with like clickers, because I think the CGI, even the acting itself of those people, shout out to everyone that played a clicker in this TV series, because paid it homage to the game and then some. It was just perfect. The voice, the gurgling of the throat, the movements, the prosthetics, the CGI, all of it was amazing. It was great TV. Those half an hour, 40 minutes or an hour, however long each episode was, absolutely flew by, and I was like, oh shit, is that it? But it's actually been an hour, and time flies when you're enjoying yourself, and I really did enjoy myself watching this episode and this series. I hope you guys did too. Let me know in the comments what you think about the episode and the series as a whole. Is there any gripes? Do you agree with what I've said, or is there anything you think I've missed? Or what's your opinion on season 2? Are you worried like I am, or eagerly awaiting for it to drop? Don't know when it's going to be. I don't think they've announced it yet, but I'm hoping there's going to be small tweaks at least. But it's a bit of an odd decision to then flesh the episodes out. I get why they're doing it for season 2. Again, probably didn't expect this to do as well as it has. It smashed box office records. It smashed records. Even like Game of Thrones watching numbers each week has gone up and up and up. Millions and millions of people are watching this every week, and it's drawn in a huge audience. It's drawn in people that haven't played the game, that now want to go out and play the game and purchase it and get into the world. It's just such a beautiful thing to be able to share with people, like my partner who hasn't played the game, and you know, we're talking about it and she's like, I can see why you're into video games now. If this is what it's like in some of these games, I can absolutely see why you're so invested in it. And I hold my hand up and say I was wrong, that, you know, video games are for kids and all that shit, and it's entertainment. I get it, and it's amazing. I want to play the game, and it's a great time to be alive. It's a great time to experience something that's just so likable, relatable, and it's great TV. I honestly can't remember the last time I've watched something like this, where it pulls on all your emotions. You get completely invested in what's going on. You don't want to hear anyone talk, and you just want to focus on the screen. You want to absorb the world, absorb the characters, and then talk about it forever afterwards as well. It's just great TV. And as I said, I've said it before in the prior episodes, I'll say it again, this is the best video game to TV adaptation I have seen. thus far, and I think it's going to take a hell of a lot to smash it off the top spot. 10 out of 10, perfecto, loved it. Thank you so much for watching the video, guys. As I said, let me know in the comments what you think. Are you worried for season 2, or are you looking forward to season 2? That is the end. Season 1 is done. No more Last of Us, thankfully. No, not thankfully. I hate it. Hate it, hate it, hate it. What am I going to do? But I'm going to have to find something else to watch. But I will keep the TV and movie reviews coming on anything that I pick up, anything that's topical, anything you guys want me to do. Please do reach out to me on TikTok, PSN, Twitter, even YouTube, and I can put it together for you lovely people. If there's enough push for it, you want me to check out a certain film, check a certain TV series, just let me know. And if there's enough drive and enough push for it and I've got the time, I will put it aside and I will do it for you. But that's us done. Joel and Ellie done, parked for now. Season 2 is confirmed, we just don't know when it's landing, but be sure that I will be reviewing that as of when that lands as well. But I hope to see you soon, guys. Please do leave a thumbs up if you did enjoy this video, and subscribe if you're brand new, and I'll see you in future videos or live streams, hopefully. Take care until then. Peace.